Welcome everyone, I'm Spiro, joined with the founder and editor of Newsbud.com, Sibel Edmonds. Sibel, how are you today?
Good to be here. It's been a while since we have done a joint quick update, so it's good to be here, everyone.
Well, we've all been seeing the news. Everything for the past week or week and a half or so has been all about Syria. We've been seeing a lot of the hype, the back and forth. Is there going to be military action? Supposed chemical attacks? Is Russia going to retaliate? We've been seeing, it's just everywhere you look is Syria. We've received a couple questions from some of our supporters, some of our members here at Newsbud asking, why aren't we doing more Syria coverage? And we're going to talk a little bit about Syria here. Just to preface this, though, we have been covering Syria since before the war even began there, starting with your report breaking the story. Can you give us a quick recap for some of the new members who may not be aware of your initial report?
Absolutely. Thank you, Spiro. Thank you for reminding me because, as you said, we have many new members, people who have started following Newsbud in the recent 1 or 2 years. We broke the Syria story in 2011. Before Syria made the headline. In fact, our breaking news is the first article exposing the U.S. military operations together with NATO in Turkey's U.S. NATO air base, Incirlik base in 2011, November of 2011. And when we published that, we came under the severe attack saying, what are you talking about? We are just finishing Libya, so you're talking about Syria. That's because I have so many sources, not only within the intelligence community, military members, whistleblowers here in the United States, but also hundreds of reliable sources in other countries, including in Turkey, in Syria, in Iran. And that news article came about based on two very legitimate, high-level people, sources that I've had saying that the United States, NATO have been training. Later, this group became ISIS, believe me or not. They may want to call it the Free Syria Army or whatever they want to call it. But what they were doing, they were bringing these people into Turkey, into this camp. This is U.S. NATO camp. They were training them militarily. They were giving them weapons, and they were funneling them back into Syria through the porous borders between Syria and Turkey to start creating cells and go about this uprising that later in 2012, 2013, we started seeing some reports here and there. So we reported that. And then 2 months after that, again, I broke the story on Jordan camp. And again, this would be early 2012, late 2011. In fact, we interviewed one person from Jordan who actually gave the exact location of the camps that they were establishing in Jordan. These were all the prep work for post-Libya intervention, aka intervention, actually the war. And again, as I said, at the time, we had a lot of skeptics saying, well, why this isn't on New York Times and this is not being reported by any of the mainstream media outlets. And we said, because they are not going to do it until this operation is ready to basically kick off in Syria. So yes, we have been covering, we have had many roundtables. One of the biggest reasons we are not jumping like these bloggers and the social media personalities, bunch of idiots, is that there's a reason people call it the fog of war. You have so much information, especially today with the social media, real-time news. We are bombarded constantly, and you have to sift through the information and then determine what seems to be legit, what is not, whose agenda is being represented in each piece of news. To give you an example, okay, we had a bunch of idiots, both from the Russian and Syrian sides. I'm going to call everyone idiot. Anybody who doesn't like it, turn off, get out of this site, okay? Because we are talking the talk here. So This said, and this came from the Russian side and the Syrian propaganda side, saying of the hundreds of missiles that the US and France hit us with, Syria neutralized at least 71 of these missiles. You know, we intercepted it, we destroyed their missile. Okay. And I looked at the source. It says Syria, and a bunch of idiot personalities in Syria. Then we had an hour later, the idiots from this side, the warmongers, pushing through Pentagon and their mouthpiece within the U.S. mainstream media saying, well, you know, we fired all those missiles, and even though Syrians fired 40 missiles and tried to intercept, they were not able to hit a single one of our missiles, okay? So put yourself in this middle position and say, who is telling the truth here? I'm not saying that this little stupid detail is important, how many missiles were fired, how many Syria neutralized, but this is, again, the distraction they want to cause. They want people to get into the nitty-gritty stupid details rather than stepping back and look at the whole picture. So why is it important to know how many of those missiles were intercepted by Syria? Why is it important for Pentagon and their mouthpiece mainstream media saying they couldn't hit single one of our missiles? These are basically what we call war posturing. And in the fog of war, you're going to be hit with information constantly. Now, if we are like some of these self-proclaimed bloggers who come out and put this news, breaking, all idiots, I want you to pay attention. All the missiles they sent, Syria intercepted all of them. They are mighty. Then the next day we come and say, Pentagon said they couldn't even intercept one missile. What have we given our readers? Is that news? Is that really news? But again, if we step back and look at it, all this talk that we are seeing are talking about who did this chemical attack, okay? You have the US and the West and the NATO and their corporate media talking about, here's Assad, he's releasing these chemical weapons on his own people, and we have to step in, okay? That's the narrative. Then the idiots, I'm sorry again, actually I am not sorry, they are idiots. The idiots from the Assad's mouthpiece, the little clowns and the Russian, they are like, no, this was false flag attacks. It is, I don't know, white helmets or these people who did the chemical attacks. The question is, has there even been any chemical attacks in Syria? Okay, that's the real question. So before even determining that with any kind of investigation, with any kind of legitimate report, and by investigation, I don't mean a one-sided investigation, they are arguing who did it. You know, it's like you come across nothing, no murder has been committed, and you put all your task force in a police department and say, let's determine who did it. Well, was something done? Was there a murder? You don't have a body, you don't have any autopsy, you don't have any report, but you are talking about a possible murder that may have occurred and the possible culprits who would have done it. Again, this is idiotic. We at Newsbud, we are not in this business of shallow, bloggish. I think social media is doing a good job taking care of it. So this is the reason we are not coming on our website and trying to create this cognitive dissonance among our readers, confusing them. Because confusing the readers, confusing the people, whether they are here in the US, whether they are in Europe, whether they are in the Middle East, is always one of the top agendas of deep state. Create so much fog and smoke and mirrors and confusion, and then have idiotic people fighting each other, not on facts, not on real issues, but on some bunch of unverified balonies. This is why we at Newsbud, we don't engage in what I call the Kardashian type news and saying, oh yeah, like who did it? And then taking side. That's another bullshit that I see a lot of people committing. We are not in the business of taking side, okay? Now, as I said, what you do is, this is why we always emphasize, take a look at the history, take a look at the context, take a look at the pretext, and then try to put the two and two and two together, okay? Now, Who do we know as a nation that has this track record of the number one top constant users of chemical weapons? Honestly. Okay, not taking sides here. Now, if we look at the history, the recent history included, we are looking at the United States, okay? We have Agent Orange. We had the nuclear bombing Hiroshima, Nagasaki. We have consistently engaged in this type of unethical, I mean, that's literally putting it mildly, awful, atrocious, okay, anti-humanitarian methods of waging wars. And these are the wars we wage, and then we go and then we dump all the weapons, the chemical, nuclear, in other countries, okay? So that's one. The other thing we need to look at is how many times we have seen this damn story. I mean, this is the same scenario, okay? It was not that long ago, okay, less than 2 decades ago, 15 years ago, we had our people, the United States government, before billions of people televised in the United Nations, this man, Colin Powell, getting up and saying, we have the proof.
The gravity of this moment is matched by the gravity of the threat that Iraq's weapons of mass destruction pose to the world. Let me now turn to those deadly weapons programs and describe why they are real and present dangers to the region and to the world. First, biological weapons. When Iraq finally admitted having these weapons in 1995, the quantities were vast. Less than a teaspoon of dry anthrax, a little bit about this amount. This is just about the amount of a teaspoon. Less than a teaspoonful of dry anthrax in an envelope shut down the United States Senate. And Saddam Hussein has not verifiably accounted for even 1 teaspoonful of this deadly material. And that is my third point, and it is key. The Iraqis have never accounted for all of the biological weapons they admitted they had, and we know they had. They have never accounted for all the organic material used to make them, and they have not accounted for many of the weapons filled with these agents, such as their R-400 bombs. This is evidence, not conjecture. This is true. This is all well documented.
All these barrel satellite images that you see show that Iraq, Saddam Hussein has all this WMD. After hundreds of thousands of death and destruction, and the death also applies to American soldiers as well, okay? It was oopsie daisy, we didn't find anything. And then we didn't even get any apology, any reparation, nothing. It was faulty intelligence.
The main reason we went into Iraq at the time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. It turns out he didn't, but he had the capacity to make weapons of mass destruction. But I also talked about the human suffering in Iraq.
Well, first of all, I haven't lied.
Yeah, it is inexcusably inaccurate to suggest that anyone lied about it. President Bush did not lie. Dick Cheney did not. Colin Powell, who made the presentation to the United Nations, did not.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there.
When you have that kind of track record, of course you're going to see, even if there was something real, people are going to legitimately question what you're putting forth here. Okay, it's like cry wolf. We don't believe this government when they accuse other governments of using WMD, period. Unless there is independent verification, independent investigation. UN is their own mouthpiece. NATO is not the independent. Russians are not the independent investigation. And that brings a question, well, who would we even consider independent? We can't even consider the neighboring country. Iraq is already our colony. Then we have Israel with its own interest and objective. Then you have Turkey that has already gone into Syria and has declared its own war. Okay, who do we determine to be the independent, objective body, international body, to go in there, conduct tests, and come out with report? So, first of all, we don't know if any chemical weapons were released on people in Syria. That's number one, okay? Number two, put aside all the political knowledge, put aside everything. Let's just use common sense and ask yourself, why in the world Assad would hand the Western governments who have been set on invading and a regime change in Syria in a platter, in a silver plate, give them the excuse to engage in this war and attack? Why would Assad do such a thing? Okay, just common sense. Let's put aside everything, whether you're pro-Assad, whether you're anti-Assad, whether you're whatever hick, just think common sense. Why would Assad do something like that? Why? It just doesn't make sense. Now, somebody may say, well, it's possible that some elements within Assad's own government may do something like this, to sabotage Assad's government. That would be one hypothesis. But right now, we can't engage in that kind of a fruitless discussion because we don't even know if there was any chemical weapons. Somebody coming and saying, well, we tested some urine and it showed positive. I mean, that's not a report. You don't go and spend hundreds of millions of dollars worth of missile attacking a sovereign country without declaring a war on that country constitutionally in this country based on some urine sample showed something in there, and that possibly is done by Assad. I mean, it's insane. It is surreal. And then the other thing we don't see in the media, I mean, we don't see anyone, at least here in the U.S., talk about the U.S. Congress. Have you noticed, Spiro, how irrelevant they have become? How irrelevant this entity has become? I just saw this headline, and I'm going to be the old lady and use this. Here it is. It says, Donald Trump ordered Syria strike based on a secret legal justification that even Congress can't see. Now, how can this be constitutional given the fact that Article 1, Section 8 of America's founding document declares that the Congress shall have power to declare war? And then you have Trump administration, you have the U.S. government saying it's too secret for Congress to see. So at this point, I don't understand why it is that Americans here, people in the U.S. are not being outraged, saying, if you have all this evidence, run it by Congress. I mean, and this is not claiming that the Congress is going to do its job and have a vote, based on what is best for the Americans and what is best actually for the world. Because when you look at these sold out whores in Congress, what do you see? And I'm going to repeat that again, sold out whores in Congress. What you're going to see is they are pocketed by people who are profiting from these missiles being sent to Syria. I mean, we just, when did we publish this, Spiro? We just published this article. See, that is, even though it doesn't say it's about Syria, in a way it is about Syria. We just published an article by our military veteran, Christian Sorensen, talking about putting all the report. This is not some stupid blogger coming and claiming things, okay? All the documentations, all the links saying in only 2.5, 3 months, we spent $4 billion on no-bid drone contracts, okay? $4 billion. Who profited from these contracts? And how much of that profit goes into the pockets of those sold-out whores sitting in the United States Congress? And I have a proposition. If these types of decision-making issues, these types of war-related intelligence are so secret that Congress can't see, can't look at it, and they have no right to vote on it. Not that their vote even matters or is even legitimate at this point, but let's say it is. Why don't we just go ahead and nullify Congress? I mean, just go ahead and get rid of it. What is it for? You get a bunch of people who get elected to sit there, fill up their pockets with all the lobby money from the big pharma, from the military industrial complex, from the intelligence industrial complex, from the information industrial complex. And their job is to do nothing, to actually facilitate all these things that are against the interest of not only Americans, against the interest of humanity. Is that why we have elected and people go, I'm not participating in this sham elections business in the US, but is this why people go every 2 years and they elect representatives?
They're keeping Americans safe, Sibel. Didn't you hear the president's speech?
Well, actually, one of the things that I always talk about with our veterans and including some of them who are part of my whistleblowers organizations, I mean, $4 billion, no accountability, just thrown in there. Trillions of dollars is spent on wars. But look at the way the veterans are being treated. Take a look at the homeless veterans. Then go back and read the stuff that we at Newsbud publish, okay? Go read those stuff and then put together with the situation of thousands, tens of thousands of veterans who are homeless. That we have all these trillions of dollars to waste and destroy humanity on wars, but we don't even take care of our veterans. I mean, where is the outrage in this country? And that's what I've been wondering. I saw a little bit of that on Alex Jones' channel the other day, that even he got, being such Trump supporter, he got outraged and said, this is BS basically, and enough is enough. But where is the outrage by the majority of these people who live in these countries, who are engaged in these perpetual wars, destroying millions of lives, millions of lives? You know what they are doing? It's so unfortunate because we were all very hopeful. We were very hopeful when we saw internet, the birth of internet, the birth of alternative media and the social media real-time information. Honestly, right now when I'm looking at it, I see the situation even worse than it was before. How are you going to determine which information you're seeing is true? And look at the results of it. Are we in a better place today with the so-called old alternative media outlets entering, all the idiotic bloggers and all the social media, what do you call that? We were talking about the keyboard warriors, the jobless, familyless, lazy ass people who sit and work their keyboards, and they are spreading hate because it's the hate between the Democrats and the Republicans. It's the hate from pro-Assad and the anti-Assad people in Syria. It's the hate between Muslims and Christians. All we have seen is increase in hatred and actually increase in the amount and the level and the percentage of misinformation, disinformation. So we do not take part, as Newsbud, we do not take part in this kind of reporting. That is not what we do. Once we gather facts, or once we have enough facts, and once we gather enough number of experts to sit down and have meaningful analysis, meaningful discussions, of course we are going to do it. But right now, if we were to do this, like a lot of these people do, these useless idiots are doing, we can sit and say, this intercepted this one. No, this one did this. Oh no, that doctor is terrorist. Oh, you know what? The trash cans are not being emptied on the streets in Syria. It's like, what are you doing? You are missing all the macro issues and points that are facing us. And I'm talking about matters of life and death, all of them. And you're talking about some nitty-gritty allegations that is just meaningless. When you look at the big picture, it's meaningless. And the other thing I want to emphasize here, and that's very important. When I talk about expertise, I'm not talking about only academic expertise, okay? People ask me, they're like, Sibel, why don't you talk about the cryptocurrency and econ? Well, forget about expertise. I haven't even looked at it that much. I have read some of the articles. I have watched some of the videos produced by some people who are considered experts. That is not my expertise, okay? With that, I'm not going to go and play the guru. I call that playing the guru and say, well, folks, today I'm going to talk to you about why you should use Bitcoin and forget about cash, and anybody who's telling you gold, don't listen to them. I'm looking at some of these people. I'm like, wow. They are suddenly guru and expert in every single thing. We don't do that at Newsbud. We have one of the top econ experts here at Newsbud, okay? It's Pi Ian. When he talks, I listen and I actually take notes. Same thing. Although I'm pretty up to date reading issues and the cases that have to do with China, it's not my expertise. I haven't lived in China. I haven't studied Chinese history or politics in depth. So for me to get in front of the audience and say, by the way, to do that, in order to be that kind of a-hole guru, self-declared guru who's a narcissist, first of all, this site wouldn't have been called Newsbud and or predecessor that it had Boiling Frogs Post. I would have called it, I got that domain so that nobody else would use it. I would call it Sibel Edmonds Report because it would be all about me. I'm the guru. Listen to me. I have a bridge to sell you. Today, I'm going to get commission and sell you. Steam it. Tomorrow, I'm going to tell you, forget Bitcoin. I'm getting commission from another guy who's starting another piece of crap. Just sell your gold and do that. And tomorrow, the day after, I'm going to talk to you about price of gold. I mean, or Syria. To me, that's preposterous. And I don't know. There are people, same reason. It's very true. It's the same reason you see people, millions who are attracted to Kardashian. What makeup do you use? You're the guru on makeup. You're the guru on, I don't know, the butt size, whatever it is. There are people who want that kind of BS. Well, Newsbud is not that, okay? We are not that. We are a team. And I didn't call this site Sibel Edmonds Report to show my ugly mug every day on the YouTube, on the channel saying, well, folks, today, as someone who has been only a keyboard warrior, I'm going to tell you what is really happening in Syria. Because I'm the guru. I have all the facts here. I have checked them out. I have vetted them out. And then after that, I'm going to get into Indonesia and China. And after that, I'm going to talk to you about econ. This is not that kind of site. And the reason I'm putting this there, I want to make it clear. So anybody who is coming and looking for BS, they shouldn't be here. But if you are a person who's sound-minded, okay, who's logical, commonsensical, not so biased, who wants to get real information from people with established expertise, okay, with established independence, then come and join us. And I believe you're going to take a lot. You're going to get a lot out of this website. But no, we're not going to do that kind of reporting that something comes out and we're going to come across and say, oh, yeah, here is what's happening. Let us tell you what's happening in Syria. I'm going to make it clear. There is no independent, unbiased reporting on the ground or off the ground when it comes to Syria. And that includes New York Times, Washington Post, all the pendejos and the mainstream media, every single one of those a-holes. There is none. There are a couple of good people who have written semi middle of the ground articles, editorials, not on the ground reporting. Patrick Cockburn has done a great job. When I read his stuff, I'm like, I see a lot of things that make sense. And he doesn't claim to be, I am the guru on Syria either. Robert Fisk does some really good work on that, but we don't have it. You either have state-owned media, and we are looking at and talking about Russia, okay, doing their sites. And by the way, their weapons exports have hit the roof, increased tremendously since they went and got involved with Syria. Same thing with us. Our MIC is in heaven. And I'm going to use it, this wet dream. Their wet dreams is to have for us to go and showcase by making these countries guinea pigs, okay? So what 100,000 civilians have died? So what 600,000 civilians have died? We are testing our weapons. We don't want to test these weapons in the labs. It is both testing these weapons, okay, using these countries as guinea pigs. That's one. And then the second issue here is advertisement. We are marketing our weapons. Well, Russia is doing the same thing. And I don't care about Russian media. I look at it in order to see what I shouldn't believe. Same thing with the U.S. media. I do the same thing. But you're not going to get independent reporting. You're not going to get independent reporting from people that Assad's government funds and pays and escorts and make sure they look at only the things they want them to look at. And you're not going to get it from all these Soros-funded so-called alternative media. There are no independent, real-time, on-the-ground report on Syria as it's taking place, okay? There is none. So take everything with grain of salt. Actually change that to sacks of salt, okay? And as far as chemical weapons, the bully that we have become as the United States, as NATO, we don't even look for that kind of excuse any longer. I mean, what was the sorry excuse to go and invade and do what we did in Libya? What was Gaddafi's crime? What Libya did to the United States or to any other countries in Europe or to even its neighbors? Really? All we said was, we're going to go and we're going to do it. So I don't even know why they're bothering with this BS chemical weapons when obviously we don't even need to have that kind of a sorry of an excuse or false flag. We have become that kind of a bully. And as we get more information that is reliable, have time to synthesize it and analyze it, we will, of course, either through articles, analysis, or roundtables, or the video sessions we are going to offer to our community. And we are not funded by Steemit or advertisers and those kinds of stuff. We don't do any ads. We don't pimp. We don't pimp for Bitcoin. Okay, we don't pimp for blockchain. We don't pimp for Steemit. We don't pimp for anyone. The only thing I guess we care to pimp for is the truth. So that's why we are subscription based. Anybody who doesn't like it, just go to hell. You don't have to be here. You really don't have to be here. This is like a contractual agreement. You don't like advertisements. You want to see real expertise. This is what you want to do. This is what we offer. This is the background for every one of our team members. You're more than welcome to come. But if you want to see junk, and by the way, in Old English, junk meant trash. Junkies were the people who moved trash. You know, they didn't call it trash collectors. Now, I know today they call the heroin addicts junkies, and sometimes there's a crisscross. Sometimes you get people who collect junks who also use heroin. But junk sites, the junk gurus, okay? You get some kind of a bastard who calls himself guru when that person has never held a single job in his life, has never traveled to any of these countries. The only thing it has done some ESL teaching and come to you and tell you, use this, don't use this currency, use that currency, and let me give you the facts on this and that. You're not going to find that at Newsbud. Do you know why? Gurus like that don't exist, okay? Gurus like that don't exist. I haven't seen one. You want to have a guru in Buddhism, go have a Buddhist guru and listen to him on Buddhism. You want to select your own guru in economics, go select one and then tune in. Say, hey, this person makes sense. But there are no gurus who know it all, especially when they are pimping, for corporations and for companies and for agenda. We are not into that business. And with that, I'm Sibel Edmonds with Newsbud.